Over 100,000 electric vehicles recalled. Fire risk. One federal safety notice after another, all within the first 3 months of this year. You were told the electric car is the clean breakthrough we waited decades for. Fewer moving parts, less wear, more reliability. That's the story the manufacturers tell. And almost everyone believed it. But in the first quarter of 2026, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration logged a wave of recalls concentrated on electric vehicles, unlike anything seen before. More than 117,000 EVs and plug-in hybrids recalled in early 2026 across Volkswagen, Volvo, and Ford alone. Battery fire risk in every case. This is not a statistic you'll find in a manufacturer's press release. It's the plain reading of the NHTSA recall database. And behind it sits a question we're going to answer by the end of this video. Why are cars that supposedly break down less often now catching fire in parking lots and driveways? The first quarter of 2026 was extraordinary. Volkswagen recalled nearly 44,000 ID. 4 electric SUVs, under federal campaign number 2. 6V030. A second, smaller campaign covered another 670 ID. 4S, with what the filing calls misaligned electrodes, a more acute defect with elevated fire risk. For that group, Volkswagen told owners to park outside immediately after charging, avoid enclosed garages, skip DC fast chargers, and cap the battery at 80%. Ford recalled almost 25,000 Escape and Lincoln Corsair plug-in hybrids under campaign 26V091, where a battery cell defect can shut the car down mid-drive and display a "Stop Safely Now" message. And Volvo recalled the EX30 worldwide over battery modules that can overheat and catch fire. The common thread in all of these cases is the high-voltage battery, not the transmission, not the motor, not a brake line. The battery. And now comes the part you need to understand to see why this is not a coincidence. The sellers of electric mobility have leaned on one argument for years. An electric car has fewer moving parts than a combustion engine. No motor oil, no spark plugs, no timing belt. So fewer points of failure, so more reliability. That logic sounds plausible, but it is incomplete in a way that matters. A combustion engine built into a 1990s sedan had a manageable number of components that could become dangerous if poorly manufactured. Most failures were mechanical. They showed up slowly. They threw error codes. They ran rough. They made noise. A layperson could often diagnose them, and a mechanic with 10 years of experience could fix them. A high-voltage battery in a modern electric car is made of hundreds of individual cells, grouped into modules. Each cell is an electrochemical system held under mechanical tension and thermal load. If a single cell does not exactly meet specification, it can go unnoticed for months in normal daily driving, until it no longer goes unnoticed. And here is the mechanism you need to understand. A lithium-ion cell of the nickel-manganese-cobalt type, the kind used in most of the affected vehicles, responds to an internal short circuit with self-reinforcing heat. This is called thermal runaway. The process begins when a faulty cell starts generating heat. That heat raises the temperature of the neighboring cells. Higher temperature speeds up the chemical reaction in those cells. A faster reaction produces more heat, past a certain threshold, and for these cells that threshold sits at temperatures far below what you would assume is dangerous, the process can no longer be reversed. It runs exponentially. The cell is destroyed by its own internal reactions and releases large amounts of energy. Inside the module, this can trigger a chain reaction that spreads to the entire battery pack. That is the fire that happens in the parking lot. At Volkswagen, the official explanation points to battery modules supplied by SK Battery America with what the supplier called a quality deviation, including cells with shifted electrodes. And here is a detail that matters. Volkswagen first learned of incidents as early as 2024, but a root cause was unknown at the time. It was not until December 3, 2025, that the supplier identified the damaged cell modules in a teardown analysis. The pattern was there for over a year. The question is why it took until 2026 for the recall to reach owners. But the most revealing detail is in how the fix is structured. For the larger ID.4 campaign, the remedy is a software update first, installing what Volkswagen calls self-discharge detection software, and a battery module replacement only as necessary. Read that again. The first line of defense against a fire risk is a software patch. The physical replacement comes only if the inspection demands it. This is the same approach we see across the industry. Ford, for its plug-in hybrids, told owners the permanent fix was still being developed while the cars were already on the road. Volvo told EX30 owners to cap charging at 70% and park away from buildings while the hardware remedy was, in the agency's words, still under development. That is not a quality problem. That is a decision chain. One more thing before we get to the core idea. What you've seen here, the faulty module that doesn't meet specification, the software patch meant to bridge a physical defect, the supplier whose production variation only becomes visible once the car is in the field, that is not the failure of a single manufacturer. It is a pattern. The same pattern sits in the washing machine, in your basement, in the furnace on your wall, in every service agreement you signed without reading the fourth page. For 2 years I took this pattern apart, industry by industry, much of it alongside people from the comments under these very videos, the ones who stand in the repair shops and know it from the inside. That became a book. It's called System Error, like this channel. The book has one purpose, that you recognize the next defect before you pay for it. The link is in the description. The code is on your screen right now. Take a photo before we continue. But stay here, because we still haven't explained why a software update was ever a plausible first answer to fire risk. To understand that, you need to know how a high-voltage battery is controlled inside the vehicle. The Battery Management System, or BMS, monitors the temperature and voltage of every cell in real time. It decides when charging happens, how fast, and up to what level. When the BMS detects a critical temperature rise, it can interrupt charging or limit the maximum charge rate. A software update changes exactly these parameters. It shifts the limits. Instead of stopping at 100% charge, the system now stops at 80%. Instead of fast charging up to a certain temperature threshold, it throttles earlier. This reduces the likelihood that the faulty cell reaches the zone where thermal runaway begins. But it does not solve the actual problem. The cell is still faulty. It still does not meet specification. The BMS now works in a narrower corridor, because the corridor was narrowed by the production defect. You bought a car with a certain range and a certain charging speed. After the software update, it has less of both, because the update is compensating for a defect you did not cause. You carry the consequence of a manufacturing error in the form of reduced usefulness. That is not a service event. That is a transfer of the cost of the defect from the manufacturer to the buyer. Now comes the real question that emerges from this recall wave, and it is more uncomfortable than the question of fire risk itself. Tesla, the company most associated with electric cars in this country, recalled almost 13,000 2025 Model 3 and 2026 Model Y vehicles in late 2025 over a battery pack contactor that can suddenly open and cause a complete loss of drive power while driving. Tesla identified 36 warranty claims and 26 field reports tied to the issue. And across its broader recall history, Tesla's preferred remedy has overwhelmingly been the over-the-air software update, even for issues that federal regulators classified as safety defects, affecting millions of cars. The software update is fast, it is cheap, and it lets the manufacturer avoid touching the hardware for as long as the hardware can be managed by code. Here is the mechanism behind all of it. Battery cells are not produced by the automakers themselves. Volkswagen sources cells from suppliers like SK Battery America. Ford and Volvo source from their own supply chains, including Chinese joint ventures. Every one of these suppliers operates under extreme cost pressure and under supply contracts with tight price commitments. The margin on battery cells is thin. Competition with Chinese manufacturers pushes prices down further. In that environment, the tolerance for scrap shrinks. Production variations that would have been sorted out as waste 10 years ago are now caught with tighter quality corridors instead. Cells that sit just inside tolerance go into the vehicle. In the lab, they pass the tests. In the field, after thousands of charge cycles, through hard winters, and repeated fast charging, the deviations show up. That is the moment a warning light comes on, or the moment a parked vehicle starts to burn. There is one more aspect to this story that rarely gets discussed. The battery in an electric car is not repairable in a way that's accessible to a normal repair shop. It is a sealed system. It has high-voltage connections that require special certification. Replacing a single module requires special tools, certified personnel, and in many cases hours of labor that add up to costs ranging from several hundred to many thousands of dollars. While the vehicle is under warranty, the manufacturer covers it. Once the warranty expires, the owner covers it. And here is the structural problem that goes beyond this recall wave. An electric car whose battery shows capacity loss after 8 years of use is hit economically in a way a combustion car with a worn engine is not. A shop can rebuild the engine. The battery can only be replaced as a unit. The price of a new traction battery on common electric vehicles runs into many thousands of dollars. In some cases, the battery replacement exceeds the resale value of the car. That is not a theoretical scenario. It is the scenario heading toward a significant share of the roughly 4 million electric vehicles on American roads today, once the warranty periods run out. Federal rules require 8 years, or 100,000 miles of battery coverage, 10 years, or 150,000 in California. After that, the math lands on the owner. The manufacturers know this, and the answer to why a software update seemed like a plausible first response to fire risk lies right here. A software update costs the manufacturer almost nothing. A battery replacement across tens of thousands of vehicles costs a great deal. The decision to try the update first is not a technical decision. It is a business calculation, weighing the safety tolerance of the system against the cost of the correction. That is the sentence to remember. The high-voltage battery in the modern electric car is not just an energy store. It is a sealed black box whose defects can be bridged with software until they can't. This leads directly to the conclusions you should draw as a buyer, or a potential buyer, of an electric vehicle. First, check the NHTSA recall status of your vehicle regularly and proactively. The agency notifies owners by mail, but in practice, that can take weeks or months. The NHTSA recall database is online and public. Your vehicle identification number is all you need. This is not bureaucratic busywork. It is self-defense. Second, if you buy or already own an electric vehicle, find out who manufactures the battery cells, not just who builds the car. The cell rarely comes from the same company that assembled the vehicle. The production history of the supplier determines what failure risk sits inside your car. Volkswagen's cells came from SK Battery America. Volvo's came from a Geely joint venture. The badge on the hood is not the whole story. Third, a software update in response to a safety-relevant battery problem is not equivalent to a physical repair. If a manufacturer permanently restricts your range through an update, it has taken away part of the vehicle you paid for. That is not a service event. That is a change to the deal you agreed to. Fourth, battery warranty terms vary dramatically between manufacturers and models. Check those terms before you buy with the same care you give to range and charging speed. The battery is the single most expensive component in the vehicle. Its warranty clause is the most important sentence in the entire purchase contract. The recall wave of the first quarter of 2026 is not a sign that electric cars are universally unsafe. It is a sign that the high-voltage battery in the modern electric car is a sealed black box, whose defects can be bridged with software until they can't. And this time, more than 100,000 vehicle owners in the United States learned that this is not a technical abstraction. It's a letter from the federal government in their mailbox. If this video explains something you previously only felt, subscribe to this channel. This is where we regularly break down the mechanisms behind product defects, recalls, and the decisions made in boardrooms before they show up in your driveway.